There are pains that do not show themselves through screams or visible tears. They leave no marks on the skin, no evident scars, yet they have the power to quietly and profoundly shape the way a human learns to exist in the world. How many times have you felt invisible? How many times, even surrounded by people, have you experienced an almost complete loneliness? This feeling, as common as it is silent, is the inner reality of many adults who, as children, faced a kind of pain that is not easily seen. Emotional neglect happens when one grows up in an environment where feelings are disregarded, where what you feel seems unimportant, where the gaze of others never truly rests on you. Perhaps the most painful part is that these seemingly small experiences, often normalized, leave deep marks that affect self-esteem, relationships, and even the way someone sees themselves in the mirror. In this video, we decided to explore this delicate topic. We collected real stories from discussion groups and sincere testimonies of people who experienced emotional neglect from an early age. These accounts not only reveal the pain of those who went through it, but also show how common this experience is and how it can span generations. These are harsh stories, yet deeply revealing. They show that the silence experienced in childhood shapes adults who often spend their lives trying to be heard. They illustrate that the lack of validation can be as or even more devastating than aggressive words or violent acts. This video is both an invitation to reflect and a message of hope, because even though these wounds can last for decades, it is possible to recognize them, understand their origins, and slowly begin a process of healing. It is important to understand that emotional neglect does not always come with physical absence. Many parents or caregivers were present. They fed, clothed, and met basic needs, but failed to provide something perhaps even more essential: genuine attention, empathetic listening, and emotional validation. And it is precisely this subtlety that makes emotional neglect so hard to notice. Unlike physical or verbal abuse, which usually leaves visible marks, emotional neglect operates in silence, in the absence of words, in what was never said or shown. This pain has no face or sound. It hides in the subtleties of everyday life. It appears in vacant stares, in the responses that never came, in gestures that were always missing. It is a kind of suffering that often only emerges years later, when the adult realizes there is a void inside them, a void they cannot name. One telling account says, "My mother cared more about a plant than she did about me. I was a ghost." This sentence captures the profound pain and perfectly describes the invisibility experienced by an emotionally neglected child. It's crucial to remember, this child didn't expect expensive gifts or poetic words. They only needed a look that said, "I'm here with you," a listening that affirmed, "I care about how you feel," a presence that validated, "You matter." When none of this happens, the child receives a silent but devastating message. Their emotions do not matter, and perhaps neither do they. This is the essence of growing up as an emotionally neglected child. It is not about material lack, but the absence of emotional acknowledgement. It is being surrounded by people, yet feeling profoundly alone. It is learning too early to stay silent, to hide feelings, to believe that their emotions are bothersome or irrelevant. This reality builds the invisible foundation of many adult lives, a terrain of silence, loneliness, and deep misunderstanding about themselves and the world. To better understand the impact of emotional neglect, it is essential to know attachment theory, proposed by British psychiatrist John Bowlby and expanded by psychologist Mary Ainsworth. This theory shows that the first emotional bonds profoundly shape the way we relate to others throughout life. When a child receives affection, genuine attention, and validation, they develop a secure attachment, believing they are worthy of love and that their feelings matter. On the other hand, when a child is emotionally ignored, an insecure attachment forms, which manifests in various ways in adulthood. The main types include anxious attachment. The adult constantly seeks approval, fears abandonment, and often suppresses themselves to please others. Avoidant attachment. The adult resists forming deep connections, keeping an emotional distance, having learned as a child that their needs would not be met. Disorganized attachment. The person oscillates between seeking closeness and pulling away, often experiencing unstable and chaotic relationships. These patterns are survival mechanisms developed to cope with an unsafe emotional environment. But in adulthood, they can become traps. They hinder healthy relationships, compromise self-esteem, and generate feelings of inadequacy. It's common to see adults who faced emotional neglect handle everything alone, learning they cannot trust anyone. This is one of the deepest marks of the experience, the feeling that there is no one who understands or truly sees you. Many adults carry intense self-criticism, uncontrollable perfectionism, difficulty accepting compliments, and a constant need to prove their worth. One revealing testimony says, "If someone complimented me, I'd automatically say, well, it's nothing, even today. I struggle to believe good things about myself. Moreover, many have difficulty identifying and expressing feelings, a phenomenon known as alexithymia. Common phrases from childhood like, it's not a big deal, or stop crying, taught that emotions were invalid. The adult learns to isolate, hide feelings, and constantly strive to be good enough, even when exhausted. In relationships, these patterns often repeat, either giving too much in search of approval or shutting down completely to protect themselves from being ignored or hurt again. A moving testimony states, "My needs were always met with hostility, first by my parents, then by my husband." It's frightening how we recreate our childhood without noticing. Emotional neglect can sadly perpetuate itself, even with one's own children, not out of cruelty, but because we can only give what we learned to receive. Recognizing that you were an emotionally neglected child is a courageous step necessary to break the cycle. There are no visible marks, yet patterns, silent pains, and persistent sensations shape your present. Acknowledging these wounds isn't about blaming anyone, but about naming what happened and beginning to understand your own story. Ask yourself, do you struggle to ask for help even when clearly needed? Feel ashamed to express sadness, anger, or vulnerability? Minimize your feelings. Feel uncomfortable with praise or affection? If you answered yes, you may carry childhood emotional wounds, unseen but still influential. Recognizing this is liberating, allowing you to understand why you act, feel, and relate in certain ways. It's like turning on the light in a dark room. The furniture is still there, but now you can see it and reorganize. The pain of the ignored child does not define who you are. It shaped your way of loving and perceiving the world, but it is not your sentence. Acknowledging emotional neglect is an act of courage. It breaks the silence and gives a voice to the child who was silenced. From this recognition comes the chance to write a new chapter, with more compassion, clarity, and self-love. It was not your fault to be ignored. You were a child. Today, you have the power and responsibility to care for yourself, honor your emotions, and believe you deserve attention, affection, and presence. Healing is not linear. There will be difficult days, but every act of self-care is a powerful step forward. One powerful phrase captures this essence. Become the person you needed when you were a child. You cannot change the past, but you can offer the child within you what you never received: attention, protection, listening, and love. If this content has touched you, know that you are not alone. Many people share this journey, learning day by day to break old patterns and love themselves. Look kindly at your inner child, give them the embrace, the words, and the presence they always deserved. Because you deserve care. You always have. And there is still time to give yourself what was missing.